Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu einer weiteren Folge Chäos Noir. Natürlich wieder mit dem, oder immer noch mit den COZ-Pads. Und ich habe keine Ahnung, was das bringt.
で、次はタクがターゲットにされるんだ。死をもって罪を償う。みたいな。罪状はそうだな。引きこもってたからってことで。
Keine Ahnung, was das bringt, wenn ich das jetzt mache. Ich mache das einfach mal. Okay. It should have been obvious to him how much I didn't want to go and see the part of Blut and Gore. It would have been way too much for me. It would be like a haunted house or horror movie, or something. People had actually died IRL in real life, and the killer was still on the loose. So where the murderer was likely to be, I would have liked to be anywhere but there. Still, I was curious about the murderer. What could have possibly been their motive? Were they just a psychopath that committed crimes for the hell of it? That was probably the most reasonable explanation. Well, whatever. It didn't really matter to me. I mean, I was a serial killer too, and even though I had killed hundreds, people still treated me like a hero. That was an ESO, so lol. Just goes to show how much better the 2D world is. Anyway, as I tried my hardest to turn down Misumi Kuren's proposal, I imagined myself like a brawler straight out of some fighting game. A psycho killer. If I ran into a guy like that, I would turn him into mincemeat. In my delusions, I could kill or spare anyone I wanted. But the people who actually tried to live out those sorts of delusions were idiots. Das stimmt. Didn't they know that real-life actions had real-life consequences? Da habe ich absolut recht. In deiner Vorstellung kannst du meinetwegen alles machen, was du willst. Das ist immerhin deine Vorstellung. Aber das dann in die Tat umzusetzen, ist eine ganz andere Nummer. Da gibt es Sachen, die gehen einfach nicht klar. Das ist eigentlich genauso das gleiche, was ich in Videospielen oder in Filmen habe. Das kann zwar teilweise sehr geschmacklos sein, da finde ich es aber in Anführungszeichen in Ordnung, weil es halt nicht real ist. Das ist... Bei manchen Punkten ist das schon sehr hart über die Geschmacklosigkeit hinaus, muss ich fairerweise sagen. Da weiß ich nicht, ob ich das... Das ist auch schwer zu sagen, ob das dann auch in Film- oder Videospielen in Ordnung geht. Aber allgemein bin ich der Meinung, dass halt in digitalen Medien und deiner Fantasie und Büchern theoretisch im Grunde fast alles in Ordnung ist. Bis hin zu alles. Weil es halt, oder zumindest solange es nicht in der Realität geschieht. Also damit meine ich, solange es reine Fiktion bleibt. Realität ist da was ganz anderes. Da bin ich sehr, sehr hart, das zu differenzieren wird. Weil es einfach nur in Anführungszeichen Gedankenspielereien sind und Realität. Weil ich hänge mich gerade zu sehr auf. Ich denke, ich mache am besten weiter. But the people who actually try to live... Even the new gen killer would be caught eventually, and then they would rot in prison for years, decades, even just waiting to be sent to the gallows. If I could say one thing to them, it would be, what a pity. You really should have kept your delusions to yourself. Yep. Jetzt kommt da... Ich glaube, jetzt kommt das... Hier ist, glaube ich, Deutsch, oder? Also das das ist Deutsch. I went out to buy myself some dinner. I took the road I always used to get to my local convenience store. It was only a 3-minute walk from my base. I had walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count. but for some reason walking through it today, I couldn't help but feel as if I had stepped into another world. Ich finde es so genial, wie hier also wellenartige im Bild ist. Diese Bewegung, das finde ich sehr genial. The alley was the same as ever, but it felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. Familiar, yet new, like the opposite of a déjà vu. I had researched the phenomenon online before. The name was apparently Jamaisu. What's more, the stench of rotting garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere was so thick that if I hadn't known any better, would have assumed that it had just been raining. There was like saliva on my skin. I heard a sound, the faint sound of something dragging across the ground. I stopped in my tracks and listened closely. It sounded like it was coming from up ahead, from somewhere down the alley and around the corner. Without any streetlights or lit up windows, it was pitch black down there. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see a thing. It was strange. This was modern-day Shibuya, a place that, along with Shinjuku, was known as the city that never sleeps. So how could there still be places that were this dark? It almost felt like the entrance to a haunted house. Actually, there was one very last distinction. This darkness wasn't man-made, it was real. I didn't want to go any further, nothing good would come from it. My brain set off every alarm bell it could, trying to prevent my body from taking another step. Aber machst du trotzdem. But for some inexplicable reason, my body stepped forward anyway, as was drawn to that repeating sound. My fear urged me to stop, that something horrible would happen if I kept going. My heart started racing. My forehead was slick with sweat. Up ahead, suddenly a noise that was beautiful yet somehow discordant at the same time reached me, a voice garbled by static. Before I knew it, someone had grabbed my forearm. It was all too sudden. I panicked and tried to scream for it, but all that came out was a puff of air. Terrified, I tried to force my body to run away, but it wouldn't listen. I couldn't move an inch. I looked toward my arm, and the end of the thing that had grabbed me came into view. It was dark green, with skin taut like a mummy's. Countless veins protruded from the surface and didn't look alive. If you go any further? To be honest, it made sense that I couldn't move. Going all deer in the headlights was a neutral reaction to what was happening. What was surprising to me though, was that the voice in my ear was so soothing. The fear swelling inside me was starting to vanish. You will be in danger. A serious yet gentle voice. I slowly looked over my shoulder. The first thing I did notice was the Sume Academy emblem. The same emblem you could find sewn onto the chest of every Sume uniform. Then I noticed that the person was wearing a skirt, which meant she was a girl. Not necessarily, muss ich da mal anmerken. Nur weil jemand einen Rock trägt, heißt das noch nicht, dass man zwingend ein Mädchen ist. Es gibt nicht umsonst die Sache mit Trap. But I didn't have the courage to look at the most important part, her face. She was standing way closer than I was expecting, so I couldn't bring myself to face her. I couldn't put my finger on why, but for some reason something seemed off, so I turned my attention back toward her hand. The hand gripping my arm was delicate and feminine, even though just a moment ago I had seen it as green and grotesque. This girl, who was she? What kind of expression was on her face? What kind of expression was she making at me? What was she doing here? In spite all of my questions, I couldn't manage to get a single word out. I simply hung my head in silence. At some point the dragging sound had stopped. Turn back. And in its place there was a smile coming from her body. Please, Takumi-kun. Taku! The stench of blood. Ja, wäre dir eigentlich schon aufgefallen eben. Du hättest ja eben die...
これはいい
It was awesome. I was still sitting behind a computer monitor. I chugged down a cola to contain my excitement, then leaned back in my chair. It had been one hell of a delusion. I especially liked that mystery girl. I might have given her a name and flesh out her personality in further delusions. Oh, wie herrlich. Das dürfte ein alter PC sein. Ich habe kurz gedacht, das wäre eine Xbox, aber das dürfte ein alter PC sein. Würde zumindest Sinn ergeben. I let my imagination run wild like this all the time. Usually I would go on to cast an existing character as the girl shuts a Saratan, so I might as well do that too. Do that here too. Actually Sarah didn't quite fit the vibe of that mystery girl. Mendos, nicht Windows, Mendor. Geil, ist mir gerade aufgefallen. Well, at any rate, it was a lot of fun mixing together 2D and 3D in my delusions. Yeah, I am. I was the god of the world inside my head. Is there any in there everything bent to my will?
次はちょっとエロ要素も
Oh man. I said that to myself as if I were at my base. But when I remembered I was in an internet cafe, I quickly covered my mouth. I quietly peeked outside. It didn't seem like anyone had heard me just now, so meh. For an indoor person like me, At Cafe was the only hangout spot I enjoyed. Being at the center of Shibuya and all, there were plenty of 3D decor and women and office drones occupying it. But since the rooms were all private, that wasn't an issue. As for the room I was in, it was the one I always reserved, room 37, located way in the back. It was pretty inconvenient to get refills, but since very few people ever reserved rooms near the back, it was nice and quiet. Once or twice a week I would come here on my way home from school to log on to my other ASO account. Nighthut was essentially a celebrity, so this was my way to just relax and enjoy the game. Where I did love being treated like a hero all the time, it sure did take its toll. That was why I had made another avatar. This one was a female character named Lieselotte. I hadn't accomplished anything big with her. I had mainly just made her to help Nighthut look even better by comparison. I played for about 3 hours to blow off some steam, then I had some fun messing around with my guildmates while taking about hardcore dojins and other random shit. Dojins sind Fanmade Mangas. Also meistens Fanmade Mangas. Also Dojins kommen in 2 Formen. Einerseits halt als etwas, was Fans über eine bestehende Reihe gemacht haben, oder halt was halt Otakus, Hobbyleute halt selber kreieren. Was halt nicht zwingend etwas mit einem Originalwerk zu tun haben muss. Daher, also zumindest bin ich der Meinung, dass das so war. Ich kann ja nochmal nachschauen, ob ich jetzt richtig da lag damit mit dem, was ich gesagt habe. Doujins is a term for self-published works, with the most popular being media associated with otaku as such as manga or light novels that are most often sort of various conventions or online. Jupp. Also, so ganz falsch war ich in meiner Erklärung nicht. Der wichtige Punkt ist halt, dass das halt selbst kreiert ist. By the time I had left the cafe, it was already around 9 p.m. There were even more Duschen. Keine Ahnung. Ich habe den Begriff zwar nachgeschaut, aber ich komme damit nicht zurecht. Über ein System of Night. They would line the streets like they owned the place, stuffing their faces with greasy ass hamburgers as they let out the most disgusting laughter imaginable. Just looking at them made me want to puke. And what was especially bad, if you just so much as looked at them the wrong way, they would immediately come and beat the shit out of you fucking savages. They weren't human, they were animals, not fit for civilized society. Just throw them in a slaughterhouse or something, seriously. Well, I say that, but there was no way I could hope to ever stand up to them myself, so there was no point in trying. Regardless, it was time to get the hell out of Center Guy. On my way back from Ed Cafe, I always stopped by Mangadarake, which was pretty close by, or Animate, which was a bit further off. I decided to check out Animate today, so I headed towards the station's south exit. Down that path there was an instant drop in the number of Duco ends. Man, Santa Guy was complete and utter chaos. Just walking through it brought me nothing but pain and suffering. I would never set foot there again if I could help it. I wish the whole place would just get blown to smithereens, except at Cafe and Mangadarake, of course. Alright, then time to go browsing for some comics, dojins or whatever else catches my eye. Oh yeah, that's right, the Blut Tune Volume 5 DVD was coming out soon. Was it available for pre-order yet? If so, I definitely needed to get one nailed down. Before I knew it, I found myself in an alleyway in Maruyamacho, the same alley I was took back home from Animate. I blinked a couple of times to make sure that I wasn't just seeing this. I took a look inside my bag, nothing inside but the usual, some textbooks and a handheld game system. I hadn't bought anything from Animate today. Strange, normally I would never leave Animate empty-handed. Well, whatever. I let out the sigh and continued walking. It shouldn't take me more than 15 minutes to reach my base from here. It was only a short walk from the station, yet the dazzling neon lights and thick crowds had all but vanished. There were the occasional passers-by, usually older couples heading to laugh hotels, or random businessmen heading home, but aside from that the place was deserted. Hard to believe, since this was still Shibuya, home of the bustling, Dequan-infested Santa Guy. Somehow it was already nighttime, and if that weren't enough, it was especially cloudy tonight, making it even darker than usual, since the moonlight couldn't shine through. Jetzt kommt. Here we go again. I had walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count, but for some reason walking through it today I couldn't help but feel as if I had stepped into another world. The alley was the same as ever, but it felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. What's more, the stench of rotting garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere was so thick, if I hadn't known any better I would have assumed that it had just been raining. The air was like syrup on my skin.
Wait,
hold on. Why did I say again? Has this happened before? Hadn't I felt the sense of Jammy's Woo before? Fuck, was I getting my delusions mixed up with reality or something? That sounded like the kind of nonsense some expert psychiatrist would say on one of those TV talk shows. Well, whatever. The point was, right at that moment I was feeling a strange sense of Jammy's Woo. But, on top of that, I could feel a pricking sensation on the nape of my neck, a sensation I knew very well, the feeling of being watched from the heavens. And I could say for sure that it was no delusion. It felt inescapable, as if no matter where I went, the gaze would follow. There was no doubt in my mind. Somebody was watching me. That was just how powerful the sensation was. I desperately wanted to look behind me, but I challenged myself not to. It was a game that I played every once in a while, a test. I called it the "it will take more than that to make me turn around" game. The aim of the game obviously was to avoid turning around. I played it when I heard a weird sound or felt like I was being watched. Whenever I felt the gaze, I tended to imagine some kind of insanely terrifying ghost or monster lurking behind me. Not like I would ever actually seen anything in the past 17 years, though. Even on the occasions when I had lost my patience and turned around. Still, Still, I had always been able to have at least a little bit of fun with it. I would listen to the wind, raise an eyebrow suspiciously, and say phrases ripped straight out of a manga. That was the only reason why I did it, because it was fun. Definitely not because I was scared or anything.
貴様見ているな
But do you think you're looking at bastards?
その目誰の目なんちゃって
Okay, to be honest, I was really just trying to get calm. But before I knew it, I would stop dead in my tracks. I sensed a change in the atmosphere paralyzing my body in place. I then noticed my face was soaked with sweat and my knees were shaking. I couldn't take it anymore and turned around. Which meant that I'd lost, but thankfully there was no one behind me, not even a car passing by or something. So why did I feel so uneasy? Das wird gleich aus. The ringing in my ears ceased. I hadn't even realized it, but I had been hearing some ringing sounds this whole time. But still, until now, I had been completely oblivious to it. And now it was gone. I couldn't hear anything at all. For a place like Tokyo, this sort of sudden silence seemed completely unreal. It was the sort of perfect silence where you could hear a pin drop if you focused hard enough. So I closed my eyes and listened closely, just to see what I could hear. But I still couldn't hear anything at all. That was pretty strange. No matter how that was that was definitely strange. There were all sorts of things I should have been hearing. Trains running by, car horns in the distance, some sort of small noise. So why did I hear nothing? Was something wrong with my ears? I felt compelled to shout, just so I could hear something. I felt like I might go crazy otherwise. Das ist tatsächlich so, wenn man nichts in kompletter Stille wird man wahnsinnig. Man braucht halt ein gewisses Grundlevel an Geräusch braucht man tatsächlich, um nicht verrückt zu werden. But I couldn't do it. The silence was deafening, but it made me fear what would happen if I broke it. Suddenly a single sound resounded through the silent world. Yup. I turned my head to look for the source, but instead I found a slew of shining objects scattered across the asphalt.
十字架
Yup, crosses. When I saw them, my body suddenly unfroze, and naturally, perhaps too naturally, I started moving towards them. Driven by curiosity, I picked one up. It was made of metal with a long pointed end like a needle. A stake or a nail maybe. Whatever it was shaped like a cross, hence my initial confusion. It felt almost phantasmal, like it might float away at any moment. I tightened my grip on it. And the sound continued to reverberate faintly in the distance. A sound cold enough to send chills down my spine, repeating incessantly. Even so, I couldn't help but move toward its source. It was like I was in trance. Was it just a morbid curiosity, or was I hoping that the noise would save me, that it would grant me salvation from the silent world? You know, this reminded me of that one German folk tale. What was it called again? Oh yeah. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Der Rattenfänger von Hameln. A story in which the sound of one man's pipe lured over 100 children into following him. The clanging sound refused to stop, and the further I walked, the louder it got. It was coming from further down the alley, past the corner on my left. I could already tell if I turned that corner I would be met with the source of that sound. And yet I never thought of turning back. Such a thought didn't even cross my mind. It was like my body was moving on its own. And so I turned the corner, and my eyes were struck by a vibrant crimson shining through the darkness. Yep. Nettes Bild. My first thought was, where have I seen this art piece before? And my second thought was, it doesn't look very realistic. Maybe I was so shocked that my brain wasn't processing things properly. Normally when I saw something this terrifying, I would freeze, scream like a little girl, and piss my pants all at once. The work consisted of spikes arranged on a wall, like the quills of a hedgehog, or pins in a pincushion. But when I looked closer, I realized the pincushion was leaking blood. So then that meant that the puddle of crimson below it was blood. The feeble glow of a streetlight just barely reached it, causing the pool to gleam in the darkness. Scattered around were a few shining pieces of what looked like meat. Maybe, I couldn't really tell. I tried to gulp, but my throat had gone completely dry. Not a single drop of saliva to be found. And then I realized. The thing that was nailed to the wall. Yup. Was a human corpse. A murder that was far too unnatural, far too brutal, far too immoderate. And the one who had done it, the one who had nailed the stakes to the wall, was a single girl. As for how I knew that, it was because she was right there, standing in front of her art, holding a bundle of stakes in her blood-soaked hand. I could only see her back from here, so I obviously had no clue what she looked like. What I could tell though was that she was wearing a Sume Academy uniform. The stench of rotting garbage was intensifying, and I was hit with wave after wave of nausea. I put a hand to my mouth to stop myself from vomiting, but I was nearly at my limit. And then it suddenly dawned on me. The cause of my deja vu, the answer to the question where have I seen this before. Yep. Shogun.
あの時の将軍のリンク写真
Yep. Without meaning to do, had said that out loud, without being horrendous or even deadly as mistakes could be. In response to my boss, her shoulder twitched slightly. And with that, she slowly turned to face me. Ooh. In that moment, it was as if her gaze was piercing straight through me. She had desolate eyes. She had just killed someone. Oh. At first, she seemed shocked, but her expression quickly changed to a somber smile and then... Thank goodness. She softly whispered those words. Thank goodness? Thank goodness for what? And why was she smiling at me? I didn't understand. The question kept piling up to the point where it sent a chill down my spine. Now panicking, I tried averting my eyes. The first thing that came to mind was I don't want anything to do with this. I mean, for starters, I could hardly make eye contact with regular 3D girls, let alone psycho killers. And the police would be here soon, and I was hungry. That's why I should just go home. Yeah, I need to get out of here as fast as humanly possible. If I don't, I will go insane. Taku. Suddenly, she called me by name. Even though I had never told her my name. Even though I had never even met her before. I was looking for you. As she looked at me, her lips twisted into a horrifically fearsome smile. Almost like she was a demon. Screaming at the top of my lungs, I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. It hurt to breathe, but I didn't care. I just kept screaming and running as if my life depended on it. At one point along the way, I turned my head to look at me behind, but she didn't seem to be chasing me. I was completely blinded. My lungs struggled. My agonizing panting echoed through my room. I plopped down and completely my body and clothes were completely drenched in sweat. What the fuck had just happened? Another one of my delusions? My nausea was becoming unbearable, trying to elevate it. I grabbed a cola from Fritz and chucked it as fast as I could. The delusion was way too realistic, even for my usual standards, and boy was it gruesome, too gruesome. I was still out of breath. Could a simple delusion really do this to me? No, it definitely couldn't. I felt an uncomfortable sensation in my right hand. I had been clenching my fists so hard, my fingers had nearly turned white. I hadn't even noticed until just now. I slowly opened one finger at a time, and while my heart pounded like a drum. Jupp, du hast da was mitgenommen. Lying in the palm of my hand was a single steak. Und wegwerfen. Terrified by the sight of it, Ängstlich turned around and threw it against the wall. That was the steak from before, but I definitely did pick one up off the ground earlier, but how was that even possible? Hadn't it all just been an delusion? I don't know. It can't possible. It can't be possible. It can't be. At my wit's end, I started pacing around my room. I needed to figure out whether that nightmare has been real or just another delusion. That was the plan, that until I slipped on a CD case and lost my balance. In a panic, I reached out for something to keep myself from falling flat on the floor. I barely meant to find something to latch onto, but unfortunately that something was my save of waifus. Oh. Before I had the sense to regret it, it was already too late. I was able to stop myself from falling ass first onto the floor, and to make matters worse, several of my beautifully arranged figures came tumbling down on top of me. Oh god, god damn it, this was the worst. Everything about this was just the worst. Ich denke, an diesem Punkt würde ich jetzt mal die Folge beenden. So langsam kriegt man, glaube ich, ein Bild davon, wie das Ding abgeht. Ich freue mich. Ich freue mich schon, wie es weitergeht. Ich kenne ja das Ganze schon aufgrund der Serie. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.